tax freight train is bearing down on your retirement. To protect yourself, you'll have to harness the power of zero.
Hello, everyone. This is David McKnight. I am the best-selling author of The Power of Zero, Look Before You LURP, The Volatility Shield, and coming in November, Tax-Free Income for Life. Welcome, everybody, to the Power of Zero show. I'm grateful that you are carving out a little piece of your schedule to learn about the Power of Zero approach to retirement planning. If you are looking for someone to help you navigate all of the pitfalls that stand between you and the 0% tax bracket, head on over to davidmcknight.com. And if you are an advisor who wants to transition your practice to a Power of Zero practice, we'd be happy to talk to you over at powerofzero.com. And as always, I would love a follow on Twitter at McKnight & Co. at McKnight & Co. Well, today we're going to be talking about what are some things you should be thinking about? What are some things that you should be doing if you are anticipating an inheritance? Now, not everybody is going to get an inheritance, but if you are, you're going to want to pay close attention because there are some things that you can do to help mitigate the tax bite of Uncle Sam when you are prepared to receive these assets. And we don't ever like to, that's sort of the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We don't like to talk about when people are going to die or how much you're going to get. But if you can tackle these issues head on, then less money is going to go to the IRS. So I want to give you some things to think about today if you are planning on getting an inheritance. So first of all, overarching rule when it comes to inheriting money, I want to give you a peek inside the IRS's mentality. You want to help you crawl inside the IRS's brain to help you understand what their ultimate goal is. Their ultimate goal, whether you're inheriting money in a taxable bucket, whether you're inheriting money from a tax-deferred bucket like an IRA or a 401k, or whether you are inheriting money from life insurance or some other tax-free vehicle like a Roth IRA, Roth conversion, Roth 401k, what have you. Their goal is to get all of that money eventually, within 10 years, in some cases immediately, to get that money into your taxable bucket. Why do they want to get it into your taxable bucket? Because your taxable bucket is the least efficient of the three buckets. Between the taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free, it's the least efficient of all the buckets. How do you know? Well, all you got to do is do the reverse genealogy on those dollars when you receive them. If they start off in tax-free, you are forced to realize those dollars. If it's life insurance, you're forced to realize those dollars. You do inherit them tax-free, but they go immediately into your taxable bucket. And then we'll get into what happens with tax-deferred and taxable here in a second. But you got to remember, the IRS wants to get those inherited dollars, in some cases immediately, but in all cases within 10 years, into your taxable bucket. That's where they make the most money. They want to get those tax-free dollars immediately back into circulation so they can tax them time and time and time again. So let's go through each bucket and talk about what happens when you inherit them, and then we'll talk about some things that you can do about it. Well, we know that if you inherit money from a taxable bucket, that you do currently get a stepped-up basis, which means whatever was the value of those investments at the date of death, that is your new basis, okay, from which any future growth is measured and taxed accordingly. So taxable money generally goes to your taxable bucket. So the IRS has you exactly where they want you from day one, because if that money comes in the form of a mutual fund, chances are those mutual funds are getting traded consistently, and most of those gains are probably short-term capital gains, which means you get to pay ordinary income tax on those gains. If you inherit a stock, that's still going to go into your taxable bucket. You're going to experience deferred taxes on the stock itself, but any dividends that get cranked out, you're going to pay ordinary income. Now dividends represent, in most cases, 30% of the growth of a given stock in any given year. So you're going to be paying taxes on that growth. But basically the IRS has you right where they want you when you inherit that money. By the way, if you haven't listened to my podcast where I talk about Joe Biden's proposal to eliminate the stepped up basis loophole, you're probably going to want to listen to that, because most people believe that that if Joe Biden gets elected, he is going to enact, if he can get control of the Senate as well, he is going to enact some legislation where he eliminates, that's first order of business, eliminate the stepped up basis loophole, which means that you will have to pay taxes on that money when you receive it. And then it goes right back into your taxable bucket and you get to pay tax on an ongoing basis. Now, when you inherit money from a tax-deferred investment, like an IRA or 401k, that will go into your tax-deferred bucket. Okay, inherited IRAs go right into your tax-deferred bucket. Here's the problem. You're going to be forced to realize that IRA, that inherited IRA or inherited 401k as taxable income within 10 years. Now, you may do it all in 1 year. You may spread that out over 10 years. You may wait till the very last minute, at which point the IRS will force you to realize all of that money. Of course, you wouldn't want to do that. That would be a tax apocalypse for you. But you're going to realize all that money, whether it's year one, over the course of 10 years, or in the last 10 years, however you choose. Obviously, you probably want to spread it out over the 10 years to sort of flatten the tax liability. But that money is, if you don't need to spend it for your lifestyle, where are you going to put it? You're going to put it in your checking account, or you're going to put it in your savings account, or you're going to put it in a money market, a CD. Whatever growth you experience on that will be taxed on an annual basis. So in essence, their goal, like I said, is within 10 years to get that inherited IRA back into your taxable bucket. Why? Because that's where they make the most money. If you inherit a tax-free investment, you will continue to experience the tax-free growth of, say, a Roth 401k, Roth IRA, or Roth conversion. You will experience the tax-free, or you continue to shelter those dollars over 10 years. But again, after 10 years, you'll have to take it all out. You won't pay any tax, but it will all go into your taxable bucket, at which point you will start paying tax on an annual basis. So you can start to, if you can envision in your mind, the taxable bucket on the left, the tax-deferred bucket in the middle, and the tax-free bucket on the right-hand side. Any dollars in the second or third bucket, in the tax-deferred bucket or tax-free bucket, their goal is to get it moving to the left, okay? Your job upon inheriting the money is to immediately find ways to get those dollars moving back from left to right again. In other words, they're going to force that money to go from the tax-deferred and tax-free buckets into the taxable bucket, but you want to immediately have a plan to get those dollars flowing once again back to the right side of the bucket over to the tax-free bucket. So how do you do this? Let's talk about this. Well, when you have money in your taxable bucket, there are a number of different things that you can do to get that money into tax-free. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you're fully funding your Roth IRAs. If you're over age 50, and if you got an inheritance, most of the time you're over age 50, you want to make sure that you are fully funding your Roth IRA for you and for your spouse. I would also say that you want to make sure that you're fully funding the full $26,000 into your Roth 401k and into your spouse's Roth 401k if you both have access to it. Now, you may be saying, Dave, how am I supposed to get money out of my taxable bucket into a Roth 401k when it's basically salary deferral? It's got to come out of my check. This is what you do. You jack up the amount of money that they're drawing out of your paycheck. So your paycheck gets dropped way, way down. And now you got a big hole in your paycheck. So in other words, your paycheck's not nearly as big as it used to be. You then take money out of your inheritance that's sitting in your taxable bucket, and you use that to meet your lifestyle needs. So in other words, when the front door is locked, sometimes you got to go through the back door. So have them take the full $26,000 out of your paycheck, have that go into your Roth 401k, and then compensate for that reduced amount that's coming into your paycheck, compensate for it by living out of your taxable bucket. So Roth IRA, Roth 401k, if you currently have money in your tax-deferred bucket and you need to get it shifted to tax-free, and remember, there's an ideal amount of money to keep in your tax-deferred bucket. There's a magic number to keep in there, so such that required minimum distributions at age 72 are equal to or less than your standard deduction in that year. But if your financial advisor tells you that you need to be shifting money from tax-deferred to tax-free, a great way to spend the money in your taxable bucket is by paying tax on those Roth conversions or on those 401k conversions, because you can also convert your 401k to a Roth IRA. You have to pay the tax from a place other than the 401k itself. And really, it is a general idea if you're going to do a Roth conversion. If you have money in your taxable bucket, it's a great idea to pay the tax out of those places. By the way, if you inherited a Roth IRA, you can use that Roth IRA money that would otherwise have to go to the taxable bucket. It's going to end up, the money that's going to end up in the taxable bucket, you could actually use that to pay taxes on the Roth conversion. So the final way that you can get that money shifted to tax-free, and I'm a big fan of this, is by way of an LIRP. An LIRP has something that these other strategies do not have, and that's that you can put nearly unlimited amounts of money into your LIRP. You don't have the income limitations. You don't have the contribution limits like you do with the Roth IRA. You can put it really, for all intents and purposes, the only thing that's limiting you is your death benefit. And the only thing that's limiting your death benefit, remember, the death benefit speaks to the size of your bucket. The larger your death benefit, the more you can put into that LIRP bucket. And the only thing that's limiting your death benefit is basically what the insurance company is willing to give you. And they do have financial underwriting, so that's going to be a function of how much you make and how much you're worth and what your insurable interest is, so on and so forth. But generally speaking, you can put as much as you want into that LIRP for all intents and purposes. So those are the four things that you can do to get the money shifted from taxable to tax-free. But that's after the fact. That's after the money is already passed on to you. That's after you've already inherited. What can you do in the meantime to make sure that the money comes to you in the right format? And obviously, the ideal way to have money flow to you is through the tax-free bucket, because if it comes to you in the tax-deferred bucket, think about this. You're going to inherit it at the apex of your earning years at a period in time when tax rates are likely much, much higher than they are today. So you could end up losing up to 50% of those inherited IRAs if that is the bucket within which you receive it or inherited it. So if your parents are open to discussing this with you, and it's not an awkward sort of a conversation, then you should be talking to your parents about if they have money that they're looking to pass efficiently to the next generation. And I realize that this has to be sometimes a conversation that's broached in a very, very tactful and prudent way. But chances are your parents or the people that you would be inheriting money from are not living a rock star lifestyle. Most baby boomers and their parents are not living rock star lifestyles. So they're probably in low tax brackets. Why not at least make sure that they're maxing out? If they're in the 10, go all the way up to the 12%. If they're currently in the 22, go all the way up to the top 24 and get those dollars converted to tax-free. Because remember, even though the 24 seems high, when you inherit it, you are almost certainly going to be in a tax bracket that's higher than 24. It could be 25, it could be 28, or any of those other tax brackets that we go back to after 2026. So it makes a lot of sense for them to do the converting before you ever get the money. And remember that once one of your parents dies, that now the surviving spouse's tax bracket doubles, and they're going to be forced to receive these RMDs, and they're going to be forced to pay taxes at double the tax rate. So it makes all the sense in the world to preemptively have your parents shift their tax-deferred dollars to tax-free. And you may say, hey, look, Mom, Dad, you don't have to love giving money to me. You just have to like it a little bit more than you like giving it to the IRS. Because in the end, if you do nothing, much more is going to go to the IRS and less is going to go to me and those cherubic grandchildren that you love. So it makes sense to be very, very proactive about this. So that is the best case scenario, is you get the money flowing into the tax-free bucket. At least at that point, you inherit it. And you're never going to have to pay tax on those dollars during that 10-year time frame. You will have to sort of take those dollars out of the Roth IRA so that it gets back into circulation, because that's what the IRS loves. But once it gets into your taxable bucket, you can start to implement your own tax-free shifting program. And keep in mind that if you're building a power of zero retirement strategy right now, and you know that, say, between 5 and 10 years from now, you're likely to inherit a big chunk of change, you can do some things, particularly with your LIRP. If you can make that LIRP bucket big enough, it can be big enough to accommodate a lot of the dollars that you're going to be inheriting, so that you can get those dollars squirreled away into a tax-free account, and those dollars are accruing to your interest tax-free for the rest of your life, and your children receive those dollars tax-free. So then you rinse, wash, repeat, do the same thing all over again with your children. So there is... So if you look at those three buckets in your mind's eye, the IRS wants those dollars flowing from right to left. We want those dollars flowing from left to right. We want to have buckets in place that can be receptacles, as it were, or, buckets that can accommodate all of these future dollars that you're going to be inheriting. And in many cases, the LIRP is the one that has the most flexibility in terms of how much you can put away. All right, folks, that's the podcast for this week. I like to keep these things right about 15 minutes because I know that you guys have important stuff to do. And once again, if you would like to get copies of any of my books in bulk, go to powerofzero.com/books. Stay tuned for announcements in the very near future about pre-orders of my new book, Tax-Free Income for Life. It's launching in November, but you're going to be able to pre-order it relatively soon, and I'm excited to show you some things that you're going to get. If you pre-order it from the right place and in the right way, you're going to get some goodies that you're not going to get in any other place other than at davidmcknight.com/books. So that's it for today, folks. We look forward to talking to you same time next week.